The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Sonic Web Studios specializes in custom web design, app development, social networking, search engine optimization, domain registration, email marketing, online stores, and more. Since our birth, we have been designing and developing immaculate websites and providing web solutions which are a cut above the rest. As a leading web designing enterprise, we have a team of extremely talented web designers who are well-focused and have the experience of working on multiple web developing platforms such as PHP, Magento, custom WordPress, and more. Sonic Web Studios has been helping businesses of all kinds, whether big, small, established, or startup, impress their audiences with exemplary web solutions. We don't just create beautiful and functional websites. We give you a complete online solution with the main goal of enhancing your yearly revenues. We aim to give your business the online exposure and brand acknowledgement that will help you in achieving increased conversions leading to profitable sales. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Voting just isn't going to the polls on Election Day anymore. Options like early voting, mail-in voting, and ballot drop boxes are available to more voters and are growing in popularity. How to Vote, a tool created by Democracy Works, breaks down the options your state offers for casting a ballot, empowering you to decide when and where to vote. Democracy works best when we all vote, but misinformation and confusion about election procedures have resulted in low voter turnout. How to Vote, a tool created by Democracy Works, takes the guesswork out of the voting process. How to Vote is an easy-to-use and help folks from all over the country overcome many of the process barriers to voting. Democracy Works is committed to helping you vote, no matter what. Their tool, How to Vote, does just that. You can sign up for election reminders, see what's on your ballot, get step-by-step assistance requesting your mail ballot, explore your options for returning your voted mail ballot, check your voter registration status, find your polling site, and make sure you have the appropriate ID. Decide when and where you'll vote this year at howto.vote. That's howto.vote. Even though this is a presidential election, there are many more candidates on the ballot besides the president. Go to Ballot Ready for a nonpartisan guide to your entire ballot. From there, you can compare candidates based on stances on issues, biography, or endorsements, and then save your choices to use when you vote by mail or in the voting booth. You can even request your absentee ballot or make a plan to vote early on or election day. This election matters. Make sure you have a plan to vote and vote informed. And this year, with changes to polling places and vote by mail laws as a result of COVID, it's more important than ever to have a plan and vote. Local elected officials affect our lives every day. They decide who to prosecute, monitor the quality of our drinking water, and choose the leadership of our schools. 30% of voters take time to vote and then leave some part of their ballot blank. This is a missed opportunity to choose the leaders of our communities. It's okay if you're unfamiliar with some of the more local positions. We recommend hosting a ballot party. Get together with friends over Zoom, split up the research, and go through the ballots together. Go to ballotready.org and enter your address to make a plan to vote and vote informed. That's ballotready.org.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Sonic Web Studios specializes in custom web design, app development, social networking, search engine optimization, domain registration, email marketing, online stores, and more. Since our birth, we have been designing and developing immaculate websites and providing web solutions which are a cut above the rest. As a leading web designing enterprise, we have a team of extremely talented web designers who are well-focused and have the experience of working on multiple web developing platforms such as PHP, Magento, custom WordPress, and more. Sonic Web Studios has been helping businesses of all kinds, whether big, small, established, or startup, impress their audiences with exemplary web solutions. We don't just create beautiful and functional websites. We give you a complete online solution with the main goal of enhancing your yearly revenues. We aim to give your business the online exposure and brand acknowledgement that will help you in achieving increased conversions leading to profitable sales. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful singer, songwriter, violinist, visual artist, multi-talented instrumentalist, and also self-taught in many things, and also played a number of ventures in the LA area. And as we spoke before, she's lived about 10 lifetimes, and this is going to be number 11 and more. She's got a couple of songs out called The Best Thing and Strong Enough, and also a single we'll be talking about that's released August 7th as well, too. So she's traveled all over. She's helped out a number of musicians, backing up, singing, and she's done just about everything. So live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios in beautiful downtown Los Angeles, singer, songwriter, violinist, visual artist, and is there anything I'm missing here? Ladies and gentlemen, live from Los Angeles, Phoebe Silva. Phoebe, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. That was such an exciting introduction.
Well, you could say I'm introducing your 11th lifetime, and it's going to take bigger shoes to fill a 12th lifetime for you. So we're giving everybody a challenge here today. So basically, you're a singer, songwriter, violinist, visual artist, and you're multi-instrumental, and you also pretty much have a genre of jazz, folk, retro pop, classical, rock, and blues, just all combined into one. You play at a number of venues in the Los Angeles area, and you also self-taught in a few instruments. We'll talk about that. And before we get into all that, along with a couple of singles, we're going to play one on the Mike Wagner Show. Tell us how you got first started in your amazing career.
Well, I've been playing violin since I was 3 years old. My mother and my grandmother were both Suzuki music teachers, so they put the tiny violin in my hands when I was tiny, and I started performing ever since I was super little, and then I got into singing not long after that, and spent all of my childhood performing in theater and orchestra and choir and all that good stuff, and then went to college for musical theater. I went to the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, got a BFA in theater arts, and then moved to New York, where I was like hell-bent for Broadway. That was my childhood dream, was to get on Broadway. And I worked at it for about 7.5 years in New York, pounding the pavement and waiting tables and going to auditions at 6 a.m. and all that good stuff. And I didn't quite get to Broadway. I did a lot of downtown, funky, weird, eclectic indie theater in New York and Brooklyn, and off-Broadway once. And then, long story short, I sort of like had a little nervous breakdown and left New York. It's a very long story. And ended up in LA. I'm from San Diego, so I was ready to move back to my home state, my home coast. I was really tired of the East Coast weather. So I came back to LA and I started playing music. I had been playing music a little bit in New York, kind of towards the end. and I had spent a summer working in Alaska at a dinner theater in Denali National Park about 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it totally changed my life. It was like a life-changing, that was before the nervous breakdown. That was like my life-changing kind of pivot from, I was performing in a theater, so I was acting still and singing. But I met a dude and we started writing songs together and gigging together. And then that kind of just opened my eyes, opened my heart, opened my world up to like a whole new realm of possibilities with a music career versus an acting career. So by the time I moved to LA, I was like pretty sure I was done with acting, at least trying to make that my thing. So I've been in LA for almost 5 years, and I do feel like I have done just about everything in the industry. Aside from A&R, I never worked like kind of on that side of the scene, but I used to be a music critic for a couple different indie music blogs. I used to write reviews of shows and albums. I have been a session studio musician. I still do some session work as a violinist for friends of mine in the indie community. I've been in bands, I've toured, I teach music. I worked at a recording studio for a while. I've done a lot of random shit. But these days I'm focusing primarily on, recording and releasing my own music, my original music. And I was working on performing a lot of it up until all the concerts got canceled back in March. So, so it's been an interesting few months to go from literally playing like 3 or 4 shows a week to 0 shows for who knows how much longer. But, we're just spending our time in the studio and trying to get new material out, because at least the internet is still allowing us to connect with other fans and other musicians. So yeah, that's kind of like the very quick, this is my life.
and you put everything in New York Minute very nicely too, and it's like more than that, but that was well worth it too. So totally. Oh, what a journey, I have to say this. And going back to your life-changing experience when you're in Denali, Alaska as well too, I was going to get to that part, the one moment that influenced you, and I think you've already answered that question. How was that time, or what else up in Denali changed you as well too? And what was the music scene, the arts and everything, and what was the lifestyle like up in Denali?
Yeah, it's wild, man. I'm a city girl. Like, I grew up in cities. I've lived in a bunch of cities. So it's like it was a random gig. A friend of mine from college had gone up there to work at this particular dinner theater, which was really well known for, it's been around for like 30 or 40 years. And it's right on the edge of the national park, of Denali National Park. So every summer, they have this giant tourist influx. A lot of it is people coming off of the Alaskan cruise ships. But it's not close to the coast. So you get a lot of tourists coming off of the Alaskan cruise ships and sitting on a bus for like 6 or 8 hours to get to the national park because they want to see the national park.
Wow.
Really, it's incredible. And it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And it was wild to live there because we were living there for almost 5 months. And it's like not fully, like, we have running water and electricity and very, very, very poor internet connection. But you'd open your door and you'd just see mountains and trees. And like the closest city is Fairbanks, which is 3 hours one way. And the next closest city is Anchorage, which is 5 hours the other way. So you're just in the middle of nowhere. And they're like, there are bears and stuff like living in the same like area as you. It's pretty wild. So the community in the summers, there are some people who live there year round. There's like a mining town called Healy that's about 12 miles north of Denali, and that it's been made semi-famous in that book Flash. They made it into a movie, Into the Wild, about that kid Christopher McCandless who decided to like go off the grid, and he ended up dying in the Alaskan wilderness. That all happened in this area. So this little mining town, there's about 1,200 people I think who live there year round, but then in the summer, like thousands and thousands of people come up there just to work for the summer for this big tourist push. So it's a lot of, it's wild. It's a lot of restaurants, like a lot of hospitality, hotels. The dinner theater I worked at was in a hotel. And because there's so many people up there, a lot of the seasonal workers are young people. A lot of them are college kids, or they're people in their 20s who are just kind of looking for an adventure and looking for a cool way to make some money and, have a pretty wild, unique adventure. So there's it's just a big, party up there. And it's also daylight for 22 hours a day in the middle of the summer. So people just drink their faces off. There's tons of amazing craft breweries, even in these tiny towns where there's less than 1,000 people living there.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, it's wild. So you don't know what time it is. It's 4 a.m. and it looks like it's 4 p.m. and everyone's just wasted. But there are a lot of musicians, particularly independent musicians, who tour through there in the summers. So there was live music, several nights a week at these different local bars that we would go to after work. And I met musicians from all over the country and some people that I've still kept in touch with, bands that are based out of Portland and San Francisco and New York and North Dakota and all these different places. And a lot of them are, they're indie bands. So they're on their own kind of grassroots tour where they plan the whole thing themselves and figured the whole thing out. And then there are also bigger bands that come through the Alaskan State Fair. There's a couple different summer festivals. There's this bluegrass band that I did called Trampled by Turtles that I got to see the first summer I was up there. So I just was totally blown away. And this dude that I was working with, who I ended up getting into a relationship with, he was a musician as well, and he hosted an open mic night every week at this local bar. So we started just going every week to kind of hang out and support him and his open mic. And then he and I started gigging together because he's a guitarist and I was primarily a fiddle player and a singer. So we kind of put a duo together. And that kind of was that was kind of the start of the next, I was 27 when I went up there. So it literally felt now looking back, it's oh, that's when this life started. That's when I realized that I should have just been making music the whole time instead of trying to do the acting thing. Cause I really wasn't happy doing that. And I didn't really know why, until I stopped doing it and I started writing music, and writing music was so liberating in a way that acting was not. Acting was always trying to convince someone to give you a job and, that you could play whatever they wanted you to play and jump through whatever hoop they wanted you to jump through. And with music, it's I'm the one curating it. I'm the one writing it. I'm the one putting, it's me. It's my ideas and my thoughts and my expression. And there's a real sense of community there where people want to just, you'd be at a bar and I would have my fiddle and some random band would be you want to jump up and jam with us? And, and at first I was terrified because I was classically trained on the violin, and it took me so long to get break out of my classical music mindset where I was if I play wrong notes, people will hate me. So jamming was scary at first, but now I love it and I do a lot of it. So.
It sounds like a really good transition, going from acting to singing up in Denali. And I wasn't sure if I caught this, or I probably want to ask again. How'd you end up in Denali in the first place?
Oh yeah, it was my girlfriend Heather, a friend of mine from college, who was we were in the musical theater program in college together. She had done this job herself, this particular dinner theater gig, a couple of years prior, and the director at the time of the dinner theater was asking for recommendations. Because they normally have a lot of returning performers, so people would come back year after year because it was a fun gig and we would make really good money. But it's weird, especially because most of the actors who are going out there for this job, most of them are living in New York. A lot of them are regional actors who tour around the whole country all year. So my friend messaged me and she was like, yeah, so remember when I did that weird gig in Alaska for the whole summer? They need people. They need new people to go back this year. And it's not the right job for everybody, but I think you'd really like it. And I was like, okay. And it was the perfect timing because I was so bored in New York at the time. I'd been auditioning for a few years and I was just hitting walls left and right. I was so bummed out and frustrated and not really sure. I just needed an adventure. I needed an escape. So it appealed to me to run away to the middle of nowhere.
And plus, a great place to literally chill out. Denali, Alaska.
Yeah.
We're going to have to keep that in mind. So.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible. I highly recommend visiting. Tourism has taken a big hit this year, obviously, but to anybody who's listening, who's looking for like a really, really mind-blowing place to visit, it's pretty cool.
And in other words, the heck with the pandemic, we're going to sneak over to Denali. So we encourage everybody to do that. So
yeah, I have a feeling that nobody up there is that worried about the pandemic because there are not that many people up there and they're all really, really spread out. So like, it's not like being in a major city where everyone is, you know, the risk is a lot higher and everyone's really, you know, like I have a feeling in Alaska, everyone's like pretty chill.
Right, exactly.
It's a different world.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a lot of fun up in Denali, Alaska, and we'll talk about some of your other influences and some of the other instruments and other things before we get to your songs. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget, Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960 or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here a singer, songwriter, violinist, visual artist, and the multi-talented Phoebe Silva here on the Mike Wagner Show, talking about her adventures from San Diego to LA to New York to Denali, Alaska, and also back to LA, where she's got a couple of singles she's putting out, and one of them will be coming out August 7th. But first, let's talk about some of your other influences, and who are some of your other favorite artists, singers, and other musicians growing up?
Yeah, well, when I was growing up, I listened to a lot of jazz. My dad is a huge jazz fanatic, like goes to jazz concerts every week, and a lot of classical music because my mom was a violin teacher. And then I loved the oldies station. I listened to the oldies station like nonstop when I was a kid. So like all those old like 50s, 60s, like classic rock and roll. And then, you know, those oldies stations, like, you know, everything gets a little convoluted. So then you also get some of like the psychedelic rock from the 70s and like, all that stuff. So I loved old music always growing up. And then I listened to musical soundtracks because I was a nerdy theater kid. So and I'm the oldest of all the kids in my family. So I remember like, I just didn't know what was cool except for I had friends who had older brothers and sisters and they knew what was cool. Like they knew what was like contemporary music, you know, what was actually like what kids were actually listening to. I was like listening to old cheesy shit. But I did listen to a lot of, especially in middle school and high school. Because I grew up in the 90s. I listened to a lot of kind of alternative pop in the 90s, or like, I don't know what you call it, alternative folk, like a lot of the singer-songwriters. Like this was the era of like Lilith Fair, so Sarah McLachlan and Jewel and like Tori Amos and those artists I listened to a lot of. I was and I'm still a huge fan of Ben Folds. He's one of my favorite songwriters, all like from his first band all the way through the solo stuff he does now. Fiona Apple, huge fan. Yeah, so like when I started writing music, I thought I was gonna, you know, I was playing a lot of folk music at the time because I was a violinist. So I got kind of roped into a lot of fiddle playing shit. Like, I played with this all-girl country cover band in New York for a short time that only played covers. So a lot of like old like country music, and then a lot of folk music, like contemporary folk, because the Lumineers and shit were really popular, and Mumford and Sons and stuff. When I first started gigging, like that whole kind of new wave folk thing was happening. So I thought I was going to write folk songs, and all the first songs that kind of started coming out of me were way more like old school Cole Porter, like jazzy, like like old like jazz standards. Like that was the structure that was coming out of me. So so I kind of was, and it wasn't me trying to sound or write like anything. It was just kind of the way the songs were coming out of me for a long time. So my first couple of singles that are out on Spotify now are both kind of very, very strongly influenced by like blues, what I like to call retro pop, which to me is kind of, got these elements from the 60s, and kind of that old school, like I call it, like, like the Tin Pan Alley songwriters who, I mean, that was the beginning of musical theater, which I studied in college. So, that's very, very present in my subconscious as well. And that was the beginning of jazz standards too. Like the standards that we know now are all from that era of like early 20th century, these songwriters in New York who would sell, they were incredibly prolific songwriters who would sell their songs, to whatever. So, I have like a real weird, like, I'm sure I had a couple of past lives where like I was living in the 20s and stuff. I'm like, there's no, I mean, my preference for fashion and style and everything skews very, very vintage. So there's a lot of that, but I also feel like I'm very much a product of, the late 20th century that I grew up in and early 21st century now. Like I'm definitely a feminist, and I like a lot of female artists who kind of push back against traditional feminine gender roles and stereotypes. So there's a lot of that in my lyric writing as well. And a lot of that kind of 90s folk pop kind of thing, especially in the stuff that I'm writing now, which is kind of veered off in a different direction style-wise.
It sounds amazing as well, too. And you hit upon a few points, like your favorite soundtracks and also your influences in violin as well, too, and also jazz favorites. And what are some of your favorite soundtracks when you were growing up or you listened to?
Oh, my gosh. Okay, when I was a kid, well, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat was like the first musical that I listened to. I think it was one of the first musicals I saw, and I listened to the whole soundtrack, like cover to cover. I don't even know if that's a saying that you can use to is that a thing? I just said cover to cover like it was a book, but it wasn't. It was a CD. But yeah, that was, I memorized that. I was, I'm such, this is going to be so nerdy, but we were a big Disney family. We were a big Disney family. We had all the old, like the Disney, animated musicals from the 90s on VHS, and Beauty and the Beast was my favorite one. And I listened to the soundtrack on cassette tape every single night to fall asleep when I was like 9 years old for like a whole straight year. Like I couldn't fall asleep unless I was listening to the soundtrack from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that like the dorkiest thing ever? But then like, I mean, when I think about like the musicals that I love the most, Showboat is one of my all-time favorites, and that's the 1920s. But I just think that the music is so incredible. It makes me cry every time. Hair is one that I love. And actually like my new single, which we haven't really started talking about yet, but my new single definitely has a little bit of that 70s flair to it that I accidentally wrote it. This is definitely coming from me listening to the soundtrack of Hair like so many times. Yeah, and then there was a lot of like when I was in college, it was like 2003, early 2000s, so like Wicked was on Broadway, and so there was kind of that like new pop Broadway sound happening, and I listened to all of that shit where a lot of those, and I think some of those composers, like there was the Duncan Sheik musical, and there was like the Jess Buckley musical, and like a lot of, there was sort of this transition that happened when I was, in college and first getting to New York, where like kind of pop music and Broadway were kind of merging. And that kind of started with like American Idol singers starting to, American Idol obviously becoming a huge thing. And then this kind of bridge that was drawn from those singers on reality TV shows to Broadway, because they were all getting cast in starring roles on Broadway. So the sound that casting directors were looking for when I was going to Broadway auditions was definitely this very pop, like big, belty American Idol sound that like is really not my voice at all.
Right, exactly.
At all. So I felt so confused, and I did not know how to sing like that, and I faked it as best I could, but my voice wants to sing like jazz all day, like old smoky ass jazz, or like really kind of sweet folk. Like that's like where my voice kind of wants to be naturally.
And speaking of jazz as well, too, who are some of your favorite jazz musicians growing up?
I my dad would like kill me for this because because he's such a huge fanatic, but like I honestly don't. I don't really listen to a lot of jazz. Like I couldn't really connect to it emotionally the way that I was able to connect to other genres. I mean, I remember my dad really liked Diana Krall, so we listened to a lot of Diana Krall records. I mean, it's not. Her roots are in jazz, but she's not really a jazz musician. But Nora Jones, I really love. I guess some of her records are more jazz, but I've been listening to a lot of old Stefan Grappelli, the like famous jazz violinist. I've been listening to a lot of his records on vinyl lately, and he's like mind-blowingly, obviously deceased, but there's some really incredible jazz violinists out there. I cannot play like that at all. I definitely, as a violinist, am more of like a folk pop rock kind of player, but I love the sound of that. It just, just speaks to my heart in this like kind of way I don't fully know how to explain.
And how about some other favorite violinists as well too?
I stopped listening to classical music when I was a kid, but which again, also my mother would probably kill me for saying that. But I love Sarah Watkins is one of my current favorite kind of inspirations. She was a member of Nickel Creek with Chris Bealey and her brother when they were young, and now she does solo stuff. But she's a violinist who's incredible. Been playing her whole life, like incredible fiddle player, and also singer-songwriter who plays guitar and ukulele and stuff as well. So I'm very inspired by her.
And of course, you happen to self-teach those as well, too. It's like mandolin, ukulele, guitar, and what do you have playing next?
I don't know. I'm trying to get better at guitar right now. I've been trying to get better at it for the last couple of years because I want to be more versatile as a writer. I wouldn't mind, like, if I can, I don't really have the space in my apartment right now, but I wouldn't mind brushing up piano a little bit. I had to take a couple of years of piano lessons in college, but I remember like next to nothing, but it'd be useful for songwriting. I basically am like, the mandolin kind of came about accidentally because it's the same tuning as a violin. And so I was in a show in Philadelphia years ago where I had been cast because I could play violin as well as sing and act. But they were like, you can play mandolin too, right? And I was like, I guess, I don't know. So I sort of picked that up, and I'm not very good at it, but I've been working on it, noodling around. I sort of don't aspire to become virtuosic at any other instrument, because I'm already, like, I've been playing violin my whole life, so it feels like breathing. But with guitar, I'm like, I just want to get good enough to be able to, like, write really cool songs and play them myself more. I normally, when I perform with a band, I have a couple of guitar players who are really good friends of mine who they can play a million times better than I ever will be able to. So they like hold down the guitar, so a lot of times I'll be like, I wrote this song, I don't know what the chords are, and I can barely play it, but I wrote it, so you guys play it and make it sound good, and I'll sing it, and they graciously do. But I'm trying to, especially this year, and especially with the pandemic going on and live music being on hold, I've been really challenging myself to improve at guitar because it's just me playing in my bedroom these days on live streams. So. Right,
yeah. And of course, you're doing the best thing as well, too. And speaking of best thing, we're going to play that in just a minute. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look on a professional website without breaking our budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@SonicWebStudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and Apple. Over 25 podcast platforms. Take The Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow The Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here, singer, songwriter, violinist, and multi-talented Phoebe Silva here on The Mike Wagner Show. Right now, we have one of her songs called The Best Thing here on The Mike Wagner Show. Here's Phoebe Silva with The Best Thing.
On you, I knew that you mean something to me. You walked in the room and I lit right up like a goddamn Christmas tree. And when you set your sights on me, my world stopped turning. And when you brushed against my arm, I knew I'd go down burning in the flames of my desire. Cut to thousands of foolish tears, later 100 in return phone calls, wondering what I did to lose your love, or did I ever have it at all? I've wasted all this time hoping you'd choose me. I keep trying to win your heart, but I just keep on losing. Now I'm finally on you. And you're leading me on with your puppy dog eyes and your sweet talking words so kind. My heart be racing, baby, the whole time you were messing with my mind. You built me up to believe I meant something to you, then convinced me I was wrong. The best thing I got out of you was this song. Well, I've been wallowing far too long, baby, and I'm ready to move on. Instead of waiting for you to come around, I'm writing song after song after song after song. I opened up my heart and you went running. I've been keeping my shades drawn, well, time to let the sun in. Now I finally see right through. Leading me on with your puppy dog eyes and your sweet talking words so kind. My heart be racing, baby, the whole time you were messing with my mind. You built me up to believe I meant something to you, then convinced me I was wrong. The best thing I got out of you was this song. The best thing is saying goodbye, refusing to let you keep making me cry. The best things in life are free, but I'm through giving up the best of me. The best things are still yet to come. I'm still hopeful and I'm still kinda young. The best thing is my solitude, loving my damn self instead of some damn dude. The best thing is saying goodbye, refusing to let you keep making me cry. The best things in life are free, but I'm through giving up the best of me. The best
That's Phoebe Silva with The Best Thing here on the Mike Wagner Show. Tell us more about that song and what influenced you to write that great tune.
Thanks. Well, let's see. I was working at a post-production house a couple of years ago, and like it was about a guy, obviously. It was inspired by a guy, and he had been a real confusing pain in the ass and had been jerking me around, and I was like working as a PA at this post place at like kind of late one night, like cleaning the kitchen, and like I was thinking, you know, like when you're doing like mundane repetitive tasks, and sometimes like your train of thought just like starts to run away with you. And the first lyrics came into my head, like the first time I laid eyes on you, that whole thing, and the whole chorus, all you're leading me on with your puppy dog eyes and your sweet talking words, so kind. I was just really going through it with this dude, and I was so angry and so frustrated and felt so like manipulated and taken advantage of. And so that's what inspired, the song. But like, cause I recorded it like a year and a half after I wrote it. And it sort of became the longer I performed it, cause I performed it a lot before we recorded it. We recorded it pretty much exactly the way that we performed it live. It sort of became bigger than that. It became bigger than just about that one guy and that one situationship, which was actually very minuscule in the grand scheme of things. Was like, fuck that guy. Like that guy really didn't have that much influence over me in the grand scheme of my life. But something that did, or something that was more substantial for me in writing that song, was kind of declaring my own independence as an artist, which is something I had been terrified to do like my entire life. It was always me in service of some collaboration or some other thing. And I started writing music with my ex-boyfriend several years back. And I credited him with being the reason I started writing music to begin with, because he was really supportive of me, kind of expressing myself creatively in a way that other people hadn't been before. And I really needed that support in order to start writing on my own. And then that relationship went south, and I ended up in LA by myself, kind of feeling like, well, if I'm not in a band, then I can't make music. I can't make music on my own. I have to be, in service of somebody else's project. Mm-hmm. And it didn't even ever really occur to me to just write and perform and produce music under my name as myself. I didn't think I don't think I could. I didn't think that people would be interested or that I would be successful. So I didn't do it for a long time. And I finally got up the guts to do it because, it's like the little voice in the back of your head that tells you to do the thing, even though the thing is scary. Like the longer you don't do the thing, the voice gets louder and louder and louder and louder until it's literally screaming at you. And you're like, I have to listen to this voice. Like it won't let me not listen to it. So I quit the band I was in about 5 months after I wrote The Best Thing, and about 2 years ago did my first solo show under my own name, just me, Phoebe Silva. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm not going to come up with an artist name that doesn't feel authentic to me. I really respect and admire artists who do kind of create an alter ego or other identity, but I was like, it's just me talking about my life. So like in that song, we recorded it, about a year and a half after I wrote it. And then I put it out in December, and it was my first single. It was my first single as me under my name, my own project, which I'm the boss of. And, and it's so liberating. It's been, and I just feel like allowing myself to do that, even though it was absolutely terrifying for a really long time, I had a lot of support from the music community I was already a part of, because I had been playing violin with so many other bands and artists. So I had built this really supportive network already. And people were really, really supportive of that transition. And now I'm able to do both. I'm able to both be a session player and musician and collaborator with other people's music. And I'm also able to completely do my own thing and bring other people and other artists and friends in to collaborate with me. And I just feel like, it's given me such a sense of personal strength, confidence, kind of a fearlessness that I never, ever imagined I would be capable of possessing and feeling before. So,
and,
yeah.
And that sounds amazing, too. You had The Best Thing, and also you had Strong Enough you released as well, too. And tell us more about that.
Yeah, Strong Enough is about the same guy.
Oh, no. It's like, I have a better suggestion. Come up with a song called What Part of It's Not You, It's Me, Don't You Understand? Or somewhere along that context. That's an idea for you.
This is like the earlier. I've changed gears now. I'm not writing about boys anymore, but I was writing about boys for a while because I was really working through a lot of self-esteem issues, and I was working through a lot of issues with feeling emotionally codependent in relationships, and that was a big thing for me to break through. It took a long time and a lot of songs.
Oh my goodness.
I know, but this So Strong Enough is also it's very in a similar vein to The Best Thing. It's very bluesy, even more bluesy I think than The Best Thing, and the hook is I can handle you, but you're not strong enough for me. And it was another song of kind of empowering myself to say, I know that you're drawn to me because I seem larger than life, because I'm bright and sparkly and, intense and emotional and girly and all these things. But all the intensity of me is both the thing that draws you to me and terrifies you about me. Man, that's not, they were both inspired by the same guy, but they could be, both songs could be about, a ton of different guys that I've dated or been involved with or known. I get told a lot that I'm intimidating and overwhelming, and I am pretty over that as as a thing. I'm pretty over just allowing men to talk to me like I'm too much, rather than what I believe the truth is, which is they feel like they're not enough. You know what I mean? You feel like you're not enough to keep up with me because whatever, I don't know, some insecurity issue of your own, but you're going to project it onto me. I don't know. I've reached a breaking point this year, I think, where I was like, this is a narrative that I'm going to reject from here on out, which is you're so great, but I'm like, there's no but anymore. If you think I'm so great, if you do, then just man up, get over your shit. But if so Strong Enough it comes from that place of I'm going to be fully, authentically myself. And if you can't handle it, you are missing out, my friend, But,
exactly.
I think I've left that era of songwriting, at least for now, behind. There's a few other songs that haven't been recorded that are kind of in the same vein, but I got most of it out of my system.
And you also got Into the Wilderness, which is released August 7th. And tell us more about that coming up.
So Into the Wilderness is a total 180 from those first two songs. I'm calling it a cinematic folk tune. I guess I use the word cinematic because when I was playing it for friends of mine when I first recorded it, they would say things like it sounded like it was inspired by Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings or something. It's got this kind of fantastical arrangement. I play electric guitar and violin on it. We did a bunch of violin, and then my good friend Gilbert Louis Ray, who's also a singer-songwriter, he produced the track and recorded it with me, and he plays banjo on the track as well as a bunch of other instruments. He's a really banjo player, so it's got this very woodsy, folky, ethereal fairy tale kind of feel. And it's also very metaphorical. It's kind of about the feeling of going into a period of darkness or uncertainty and feeling both haunted by the past and also seeking the future, kind of haunted by where you've been or what you're trying to escape maybe, and also looking for one of the lyrics is, I went into the wilderness to find my heart's desire. I went into the wilderness to set my soul on fire. I'm looking for the thing to light me up. And so it's sort of become this meditation on, experience, the nature of experience and how it shapes our understanding of ourselves. It's a very esoteric song, but it's pretty cool. I'm really excited to hear what people think about it when it comes out.
And it sounds very exciting, too. Where can we find your music at?
I'm on Spotify. I'm on all the things, but if you follow me on Spotify, you'll be able to pre-save the track. It's on iTunes, Apple Music, Google Play, all the online stuff. I'm all over it. So
that sounds great. And once again, we're singer, songwriter, violinist, multi-talented Phoebe Silva here on the Mike Wagner Show. Just a few more minutes here. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career, Phoebe?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. You mean like personally or kind of?
It can be both, personally, professionally, or you can answer it any way you like. There are no right or wrong answers, by the way, on the show. I forgot to tell you that.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I love that. I think I'm most inspired by my friends these days. I'm really inspired by the friends of mine who are also artists in their own right, and doing all kinds of exciting, interesting things. We've talked about, I've lived a lot of places, I've done a lot of things. I have a lot of friends all over the country and all over the world doing really interesting things as musicians, as actors, as writers, as performers, as visual artists. So I'd say I'm most inspired and influenced by the people around me that I'm connected to. Personally, just watching the personal growth and artistic growth of the people in my community, I really feel like there's a sense of us all kind of lifting each other up. And, as we challenge ourselves to kind of grow and evolve and to perform at our highest capacity for goodness, that inspires other people to do the same just by example. So
it sounds like it as well, too. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Oh, anybody, anywhere?
Yeah. What's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
I would say just listen to your intuition. Filter everybody else's input through the lens of understanding that everybody reacts to the world through the lens of how they see themselves. So we're looking for ourselves in other people. We are looking to see ourselves in other people. We are looking to understand ourselves by looking at other people. That being said, if you get feedback from people that doesn't feel like it makes sense to you, it's probably because that person is not giving you advice. They're giving themselves advice. They're just giving it to you in their place. So, don't take anything personally, and stay true to what you believe in your heart is the right, authentic move for you.
Mm-hmm. And that's very interesting point. We'll keep that in mind. Once again, Phoebe Silva here on the Mike Wagner Show, singer, songwriter, violinist, multi-instrumental, and more. Big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to again soon. Once again, tell us about your upcoming projects. What's your website? How do people contact you? And where can people purchase or listen to your music? And I forgot to ask you, what can we expect from you in 2020 and 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, way more music, tons of kooky art. I'm making all kinds of cool stuff visually. I'm combining my visual art and my music more. I have at least one more single already ready to go, a music video in the works for Into the Wilderness that's going to be epic. I'm just hanging out in my bedroom trying to create as much as possible and waiting out the days until I'm allowed to get back together with my band and and go out into the world and perform live again. And
maybe back in Denali as well, too. Who knows? So maybe build a stadium in your honor, too. You never know. So
that'd be cool. I'll take it.
And also, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or listen to your music?
Yeah, I don't have a proper website up and running just yet, but if you follow me on Facebook and Instagram, I'm super active on Instagram. My handle is Phoeborama, PhoebeOrama. It's Phoebe Silva Music on Facebook. You can follow me on Spotify. I have a YouTube channel. I make all the announcements through Facebook and Instagram, though. So, and you can buy my music anywhere you can buy music, whether that's through Google, through Amazon, through, I don't even know where else people buy music. but the online distributor sends my stuff to all the things. So you look me up, you're going to find me. I don't think there are any other Phoebe Silvas doing what I'm doing. There are other Phoebe Silvas, so it's really weird. I haven't met them.
Sounds great. You're one of a kind. I'm sure they'll look you up easy. Once again, Phoebe Silva here on the Mike Wagner Show. Phoebe, a big thank you for your time. You've been very fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Do us a favor. Keep us up to date. Love you back on in 2020 and 2020 on beyond. And keep us up to date. You've been great.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me. I really appreciate it.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Sonic Web Studios specializes in custom web design, app development, social networking, search engine optimization, domain registration, email marketing, online stores, and more. Since our birth, we have been designing and developing immaculate websites and providing web solutions which are a cut above the rest. As a leading web designing enterprise, we have a team of extremely talented web designers who are well-focused and have the experience of working on multiple web developing platforms such as PHP, Magento, custom WordPress, and more. Sonic Web Studios has been helping businesses of all kinds, whether big, small, established, or startup, impress their audiences with exemplary web solutions. We don't just create beautiful and functional websites. We give you a complete online solution with the main goal of enhancing your yearly revenues. We aim to give your business the online exposure and brand acknowledgement that will help you in achieving increased conversions leading to profitable sales. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.